So hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Sorry that this review is a little later than planned. I just got really busy with work and I've been trying to catch up with things and all that good stuff. I do have another video coming after this one for those who want to see another video from me soon here. But this is my review for It Chapter 2. I loved that 2017 It film. It obviously ended on a cliffhanger. Even the end credits of that movie said It Chapter 1 at the end, suggesting that we'd get a continuation. And that's pretty obvious since for those who read the It book, the first half is all about the kids. The second half is all about them as adults coming back to fight Pennywise. So I was pretty excited for this movie. They got Andy Muschietti again to direct this film. Um, he worked on It Chapter 1 in 2017. So I was really excited to see kind of where the story was going to go, how they were going to handle the adult story again after how the It miniseries did it. Obviously, the miniseries, the most of the complaints for that miniseries happened in the second half with adults. I was kind of curious to see how they were going to potentially fix some of the things that people didn't like about that second half originally and things like that. So going into this film, I was very excited for it. So in It Chapter 2, you guys, if you really don't know anything about this movie, it's about the Losers Club from It Chapter 1. It's about 27 years after the events of the first film. They're adults. They have these successful careers. No kids or anything, but some of them are kind of in the process of potentially marrying somebody. They've had girlfriends and things like that. But they're really successful. They all moved out of Derry, Maine, except for one of them. But so the one person that stayed behind, now that it's 27 years later, and after what It Chapter 1 revealed, that every 27 years is when Pennywise kind of starts his reign of terror again in the town of Derry, Maine. Kills are starting to happen again. People are starting to see Pennywise. Clearly, the things that they experienced in that first film are starting to happen again in Derry, Maine. So, since one of them stayed behind, he kind of became this low-key detective of sorts, you could say. And so he gets all of them back together into Derry, Maine to kind of fight off the Pennywise entity that they all vowed to come back for one day if Pennywise were to ever come back, since they all took that blood oath at the end of the first movie. So they all get back to town. Terror starts happening again. Pennywise is extremely vicious this time. Even more kills seem to be happening this time. And so they really have to stop Pennywise once and for all. So the Loser Club must unite again into the sewer to hopefully defeat Pennywise once and for all in this movie. So overall, guys, I'll be really honest with you. I thought this film was only okay. There's things about it that I really liked, but there's also things about it that I really didn't like at all. There's things that this film does really right. There's even scenes that I think are a little bit more faithful to the book based on what I know about it. But there's a lot of things in here that are just really overdrawn, really long, really messy. So let's talk about some of those things as to why this film in particular I thought wasn't as strong as that first It film from 2017. But why I think it's not a terrible movie, how I think there's still good things in it. So let's talk over about some of those positives and negatives of some of those things. So for my first positive, you guys, I thought the casting choices and acting in this film were very good. I thought they got the perfect adult actors to play the adult Losers Club in here, whether it's James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain playing Beverly Marsh. I think one of them is like the old Axe Tag body spray guy who plays Mike Hanlon in this and stuff like that. So they really got very good people to be the adults in this movie, and the acting's very good. Bill Skarsgard does a very good performance again as Pennywise. So acting-wise, this film is great. The film also has a message on growing up and how, the best way to move on from your trauma is just to kind of let go of it, move on to something else, do something that makes you happy and passionate. Really just kind of letting go of the past and just kind of moving forward with the next day and what tomorrow will bring you and things like that. So I like the message of growing up in this movie. So I thought that aspect of the film was also very successful too. And once again, Bill Skarsgard really was very good again as Pennywise, whether he's trying to be funny in one scene or really scary in another scene, trying to be a little bit of both in certain scenes. He really did a great job again as Pennywise. Though for me personally, I do kind of prefer Tim Curry's Pennywise a little bit more. I thought his Pennywise had a little bit more personality than Bill Skarsgard did. But regardless, Bill Skarsgard does a great Pennywise performance again here. So for those who want a really good Pennywise performance, Bill Skarsgard does it again in this movie. Bill Hader plays adult Richie Tozer in this movie, and I thought his comedy was very good. His jokes landed each and every time. I thought he was kind of the perfect casting choice to Finn Wolfhard. I could kind of see Finn Wolfhard becoming an adult Bill Hader in later years, potentially, and things like that. So I thought Bill Hader's comedy in this film was very, very on point. I also liked all the scary scenario solving that these characters had to do, whether it's Beverly going back to her dad's old apartment and kind of dealing with the abuse she had to deal with as a kid, whether it's Richie kind of being alone and not having any friends at the arcade during that one summer, or whether it's Ben Hanscom really trying to kind of tell Beverly how he really feels and kind of the fear behind that. So I thought the scary scenario solving in this film was pretty interesting for the most part. I also like the aging they did to the Derry town. I really like how they not only went back to that setting in the first movie, they kind of aged it a little bit more. They really show kind of what would happen 27 years after the fact. Really kind of now that Pennywise is back. What are some really horrible things that he's done to it? What's some things that people within the town are doing to each other, whether it's bullying or throwing each other into the river and just really horrible things. So I really liked how they showed how Derry has aged since the first film and kind of how Pennywise worsened the town since we last saw it. But for my negatives of this film, you guys, this film is very overdrawn. It's about 2 hours and 49 minutes long, and I felt every minute of that runtime. It's really a very long movie. And yes, I get it. It's a long book. They had to divide it into two movies to kind of give the book justice, quote unquote, but this is a very overdrawn film. It really doesn't stand on its own very well. If you haven't seen It Chapter 1 relatively recently, a lot of this is kind of going to fly over your head, so make sure you've seen It Chapter 1 relatively recently before seeing this movie. But like I said, very overdrawn film. This actually leads into my next negative point. I think a good solid 40 minutes of the film could have been removed. Rather it is things that really kind of didn't matter by the time they faced Pennywise, or whether it's shortening the time that they had to revisit their past to kind of go back and fight Pennywise again. There's just so many scenes in this movie that could have been shortened, removed, or just told more in a quickly fashion to kind of get to that Pennywise showdown and really end the film on a smoother runtime. I think about 2 hours, 10 minutes would have been more than enough to tell this story, and not 2 hours and 49 minutes. So for my next negative point, the reality to fantasy elements felt really messy this time. I thought the first film did a better job of, this is what's really going on, this is what Pennywise is really doing to this person, rather than this is kind of a nightmare sequence, this is what this one person is seeing, whether it's that bathroom scene in It Chapter 1 and things like that. So I thought there was a better balance of, this is what Pennywise is really doing compared to this is what Pennywise is doing to them in a nightmare fashion. In this film, the two kind of become one. And whether you like that or not, I personally didn't like it. I thought they could have done the balance that Chapter 1 did, where something really happening that Pennywise is doing, rather than nightmare sequence that Pennywise is behind, but he's not really doing kind of thing. So I thought those elements felt really messy in this movie. I also thought the opening of this film was very rushed. I liked how, at least in the miniseries, they kind of intertwine the adult and kid sequences. And actually, after seeing both versions of the It story now, I feel like that's kind of a better way to do this. Because that way, by the time they are adults in that second half in the miniseries, we really kind of know them very well. This time around, we have to get to know them through this very rushed sequence of, this is what this person's doing, now on to the next person. This is what this person's doing, and now on to the next person. So I thought the opening of this film felt very rushed to me, and I just couldn't get behind these adult characters as much, just because that opening is so incredibly rushed. I also thought the CGI this time around was really not very good. Without spoiling anything, there's a nightmare sequence with Beverly Marsh that involves the CGI creature running around. I didn't buy into a second of it. It looked like something out of like a 2006 video game. I did not buy the CGI at all in this, besides maybe some of the things they did with Pennywise towards the end. Besides those, I really did not buy into the CGI at all in this film. It felt very rushed to me. I also thought there was too many flashback sequences, to the point where I felt like I'm watching It 1.5. There's just not enough adult sequences in this. I really felt like if they really want to do all kids, all adults split into two, like they originally pitched for this movie, for this two-part mini-movie thing, I thought they really could have really lowered down on the flashbacks. It was getting to the point where you just kind of wonder why exactly they had to do so many flashbacks just to get this point across in certain scenes. But too many of them to me. Really would have preferred a story that just focused on the adults more, got me invested into the adults more. So too many flashbacks are in this movie, just too many of them. I also thought some of the adult characters were very straightforward, at least in the miniseries. They were more fleshed out. Like I said, it was more intertwined with the kids segments in the first half, so therefore by the time we got to the second half, we cared about them more. We're more behind them more. This time around, it just felt very straightforward, whether it's just Bill having the speech impediment again, or um, Mike Hanlon being the detective and kind of reliving them. I don't know. Some of it just felt a little too straightforward to me. Would have preferred something more unique with these adult characters. I also thought too many moments in the film tried to relive the first film, whether it is doing a scare that's in the spirit of the first film, or by the time they get down to the sewer, they have to face things again that they had to face as kids. And some of the scenes just felt like they were trying to be the first film all over again, and it really wasn't trying to be its own movie, which I think is a real big missed opportunity here. You have to make this film its own film to make it work. So overall, guys, I'm going to give It Chapter 2 a 7.5 out of 10. It works well when it really works well, but when it really doesn't work well, it really gets kind of annoying at times. And like I said, this film, it easily could have trimmed out 40 minutes, at least. I think a good solid 2 hours, 10 minutes would have been on point for this movie. The pacing would have been better, would have got behind the adult characters more. Not so many flashbacks could have been used. There's just so many things this film could have done and not have to be so big 3-hour-ish about it. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. It was okay. See this film if you really like the first film, but go into this film knowing that it's definitely not as good as that first It film from 2017. So okay film. See it with caution.